Well, hey guys, it's Dave here, and wanted to go through a few things now that I've got the new Douglas barrel. Um, yeah, the Criterion barrel that I installed on that gun now shoots really well. uh, I'll have to get the rifle. Okay, so here we go. And show you guys this here. Now, with the forward handguard on these, what you do is at this ferrule right here, you drill a couple of holes in it and you attach this with screws so it absolutely will not move. And as you can see, it's solid on there. Also, see if I can get this in the viewfinder. If you guys can see it, the screw heads, you have to file those screw heads down so that they don't touch the stock ferrule as well. Okay? And that's what I believe was happening, is that when I put this on and I would put it in the action, this would cam, and then the forward end of the forward handguard would push down on the barrel, and then I was getting this buzzing effect because of the handguard touching the barrel there. And what I did is I refitted all this, put a new stock ferrule on it that didn't wobble, and I also filed down those screw heads so it doesn't touch there. So it's held straight on there. And now the barrel free floats. So there you go. I shot this, like I said, the other day. Yesterday morning I went out and I fired some, I think they were nozzlers. I just had them laying around. And I fired it at 100 yards. And after I took my cider shots, it was like that. Once I got the cider shots and I zeroed the rifle to, get into the center of the target, I was shooting cloverleaf little, groups down there inside the X-ring of a pistol target with the Criterion barrel. So it is capable of a lot more accuracy than, was what it was afforded to it by having that problem. Okay, now that problem's been taken care of. The Douglas barrel is going to be a project for a later date. I might end up buying another M-1, I don't know, later on, and using that barrel on it. If you guys want to do a national match mod, my suggestion to you is to go ahead and get a CMP gun. Get it, so you got a receiver, okay? And if it's got a Criterion barrel put in it, that's better. If the gas tube gauge is okay, the op rod gauge is okay, you got all the mechanics of everything that is going to work there. Now the stock, you'll. I don't know if the CMP offers the service. I noticed that there's a number of different places around, the United States, gunsmithing services that offer glass bedding for M1s. I would strongly suggest you use steel bed. If you're gonna use any type of compound at all, you want it to last. And this one here, this was done by an armorer, because that's basanite in there. That's basanite. That is not going to move. That stuff is like rock. I'm telling you, it is. That gray stuff, it's rock. And it doesn't chip. Doesn't do anything. In fact, the reason why I believe it was an armorer who did it, because that's the way that the military does theirs. They do theirs with basanite, and they also take steel wool and they grind it up and they put it in the basanite so it has a steel fiber on the inside. If you want a glass bed in M1 and you want to have the experience of doing so, study up on it before you do it. Make sure you understand all the aspects of glass bedding that M1. It's not hard. It's not hard to do, but you can make some pricey mistakes. And it's one of the things that you really want to study the subject on before you do it. You know, make sure that you're all set up. You don't need any real special tools. You know, they sell this little thing that you can go ahead and pull the action down and blah 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 and all the rest of this crap. And you know, you don't really need that. I mean, you don't really need that. You just when I glass bedded my old guns, I just used the trigger guard and I put it about halfway shut so it would pull down, you know, on the glass bedding. And as it set up, once it was set up, then I could squeeze close the trigger guard, and that's what you want. That'll hold it in tight. You know, the other modifications, of course, is to the gas tube. Let me see if I can show you guys here. See how this has been filed? This area right here. See how this has been filed so it doesn't touch the hand guard? You know, you don't want it. You don't want anything touching the hand guard, and you want the hand guard secured. Let me get this out here. Just put it over here. So the Criterion barrel shoot's really good. I think I'm just going to leave it on the rifle for right now, and maybe end up getting another M-1 later, or maybe as a later project. Maybe put that Douglas barrel on there. You know, my luck. I go to the range, I come home, the barrel's sitting there. You know, this is after. All right, cloverleaf. You know, nice groups. Came home, the new barrel's sitting there. So I'm like, you know, maybe I didn't really need that barrel after all. But it's nice to have. Always check your fitting on stuff like this too. You know, that I find that partially my fault because, like I said, that thing, it would wobble back and forth, and when like I said, these screw heads would push against the ferrule on the stock, and it would cause it to tilt up, which would put upward pressure on that little ring that's in the end of the handguard, and it would push up on the barrel. And that's the reason why I was getting erratic results, even though it's still shot in the 10 ring at 200 yards. I mean, it's still acceptable, but it could shoot better. I knew that. I was like, man, this thing can shoot better. I mean, I've had M1s that shot better than this. I've built M1s that have, you know, shot better than this. So, speaking of building, when you finally sit down and say like you want to make some real high quality ammunition, say like you get some 168 grain, bullets and match bullets, and you want to load them in the M1. You know, you do all your measurements from the ogive to the lead and all that stuff. You know, with your overall gauge and all that. Once you get all set up like that, what you need to do, this is what I do. If you clean your rifle, say like for instance you come home and you've cleaned your rifle and you swab the bore out and everything like that, what you want to do is you want to put about 10 shots through the gun. And what will happen is that your first groups will be in one spot, and they will migrate as the gun, as the gun fouls, it'll migrate. That group will migrate, and it'll finally settle down in one area. And if you need to shoot your gun to foul it so you can get that, all right, just take these 147s. These cheap 147s. I bought 1,000 of these. They were on sale at Widener's, and I think I paid something like $87 for 1,000. It was really cheap. So, but these are not match bullets. A lot of people buy these and they load them up in their 300 Blackout. But these are fine for fouling the barrel. That's all you're doing is you're just going to foul the barrel. I mean, you want to go ahead and take your measurement, of course. Take your measurement from your ogive and stuff. And another thing, too, about these 147s, that cantilever right there, this is the M80 ball. Okay, this is the M80 ball equivalent, projectile. And that cantilever is cut for a 308 chamber, not a 30-06, 308. So I seat them a little further out, so the cantilever is not even being used, and I use my Lee crimp die to go ahead and, hold the bullet more securely. But yeah, you take 10 shots of these, it'll settle down to a certain area, and then you can go ahead and fine tune it by shooting your better grade ammo. So anyway, a few helpful hints there. There's books available on how to glass bed. There was also something else I wanted to go ahead and tell you. That upward pressure, that vibration that's on the barrel, if you have an M1A and you fire it, you're going to hear this ping noise. I mean, it's like ping. You're going to hear that, okay? And what a lot of inexperienced people think is that that's the actual brass coming out of the ejection port, from the magazine, bang, and it's making that noise, or it's coming back and it's hitting something and it's making the brass make that noise. And that's not true. That is untrue. That is untrue. What's making that noise is the flash suppressor. On the end of the M1A, you have your flash suppressor. If you don't get that noise, that ping noise, you probably got a crack in that flash suppressor, and you need to swap that out with a new flash suppressor. And they're not that expensive. You can get a flash suppressor with a bayonet lug on it and everything, a military one for whatever they cost, but they're not that expensive. But I had an M1A one time, and I wasn't getting that ping noise, and that gun never shot right. It was always all over the place, just like this one. And when I went and changed that flash suppressor out and put another flash suppressor, it just tightened that group right up. So, vibrations and harmonics has a lot to do with when the bullet leaves the muzzle. It leaves the muzzle in the same place every time, and it's oscillating. Barrels oscillate when they're fired. And so if you got uneven pressure and uneven, pressure being put on the barrel, then that oscillation doesn't always turn out the same all the time. So you're not going to shoot in the same place all the time, if that makes any sense. So anyway, this Thorzax, I want to share those few things with you. The Douglas barrel is going to go in the gun cabinet. It's going to be a later date thing. If I get a deal on an M1, I might rebarrel it with it, or I might even put that barrel on this gun later on. I don't know, but I still need to save my money for a national match chamber reamer, and I also want to set up that chamber reamer for the 168 grain bullet so that I don't have a lot of free bore. In fact, I want to cut it back so where I have to seat the bullet a little deeper in the case itself, to compensate for that. Because as the rounds go down through the lead of the barrel, the lead is the part right in front of the free bore, which is right in front of the the chamber end of the case of the mouth. That lead area is a tapered area, and what it does is it tapers, down to your lands and grooves. You have very shallow lands and grooves right there at first, and then it tapers in there. And that's all part of barrel break-in, by the way. I want to share this a little bit. When you break in your barrel, what you're doing is that you're smoothing out the tooling marks that are left over from the finish chamber reamer that they used at the factory. And the thing is with factory reamers is that they make hundreds of barrels, so they're constantly, sharpening them. They're shortening them a little bit. They're getting the edge back on them. So that varies, and so that's one reason why there's so much free bore in factory rifles, is because they can get more use out of those chamber reamers if they do that, because then they can just cut the chamber reamers and resharpen them, and they move that, they move the lead back towards the into the free bore by shortening that cutting distance on the chamber reamer. So anyway, like I said, I've bought Nolan, and I've also bought another chamber reamer. I can't remember what make it was. Both of those cut chambers okay. However, it wasn't until I went to PTG, which is down in Oregon, and I actually bought their chamber reamers, and I actually got very good results. It was fast cutting. There was no bull crap of it, having to, I mean, if believe me, chamber reamers can get a mind of their own, about how they want to cut. But that PTG one that I had, man, it just, it cut a really nice chamber. In fact, I built 2 or 3 rifles off of that, not 6, and all of them turned out to be really good rifles. Anyway, that's about it. Another thing I wanted to bring up as well, just bear with me. When you break in a barrel and you're smoothing out that area, that's going to happen within the first 200 to 300 rounds you're going to fire. Your barrel's not really broke in yet in that area until you do so. One of the best things you can do when you get a new barrel is to take JB bore cleaner, put it on a patch and put it down in there, and then work on that very first part of the lead. Go back and forth and kind of smooth that out. And once you've lapped that area out, it will aid in the breaking in the gun. So that's another little hint there. What was I going to show you? I was going to show you another thing on the M1. Oh yeah, there was some talk on the comments about chamber reaming. Now, when you chamber ream an M1, you don't need a lathe. You have a rod that goes down the barrel, and then that attaches to the chamber reamer. And what you do is you put the chamber reamer in at the chamber end. Okay, you run the rod down, and then you attach the chamber reamer to the rod, and then you let the bolt go home. Okay, with just thumb pressure. You take all the innards out, so all that's there is the bolt. And with all the ejector and the extractor removed and the firing pin, just a strip bolt, you want to get in behind that chamber reamer, and you want to hold just slight pressure with your thumb as you turn the end of that rod that comes out the muzzle of the barrel. And what that does is that cuts that chamber, and you do it by hand. You can't screw it up. It's easy to do. Once the bolt, bolt lugs, once the bolt lugs cam over into place, you're there. That's it. I mean, your headspaced right there. Here's another thing too I wanted to show you as well. On my brass, this was fired in a bolt action gun out at the range. The guy gave me the brass, and you can see that there's a very bright ring right there. There's a ring. With my brass, there isn't any ring at all, because I cut that chamber with a brand new chamber reamer. So it helps stop that stretching right there, if you follow what I'm saying. The chambers are tighter than what you would have on a production rifle. So anyway, there's an advantage there. Makes your brass last longer. So anyway, this is Dave Thorzax, and I'll get this uploaded on the internet and get it out there. Just wanted to share a few things. Oh, by the way, I also went and checked out the spotting scope that I bought, that Go Sky spotting scope. That's a really good deal. That's an excellent scope for the money. I don't think you can beat it. It's got an 80 millimeter lens. It's kind of a monster, when you set it up on the bench. But I like it because you can take your iPod or iPhone, put it on the adapter, and now you've got long eye relief. So you just have to glance at it. So it works out. All right. Until the next video, we'll probably be out at the range. I'm probably going to take this Criterion barrel out there and shoot it again and see how it does. So anyway, until next time.